Hello, hello, welcome. If you are hearing my voice for the very first time or you're watching me on YouTube for the first time, hi, my name is Gabrielle and I am your host of the Bespoken Faith podcast. It is wild that I'm actually sitting here and recording this video and releasing it to y'all because doing a podcast is something that I've always wanted to do. Like years ago, I was talking about it and starting to brainstorm what I wanted to talk about and make my podcast about. I've recorded a few practice episodes that never made it out there. And I wrote out my first 6 Now Eat episodes I'm working on. And I want to get these recorded and out for you guys. And whether you're a Christian or not, or wherever you are in your life, I hope that you can learn something from my podcast and take something away from it. In these first 6 episodes, I am going to be sharing my life story with you guys. I love hearing people's stories. I think everybody has a story that they should share at one point or another in their life, long or short. So I really want you guys to get to know me and who I am as a person, what I've been through, and just my story. And this has to be broken down in 6 different parts because there is so much to unpack. I probably could even make it longer. I might elaborate on some things if you guys send me questions, but yeah, there is a lot to unpack. So without further ado, here is my life story, the very, very beginning. Before I get started, pause this if you need to get a drink or something to eat, and then we'll meet right back here.
You have a voice. You should use it. You serve a God who gave you a gift. You should share it. You have the ability to create. Go create something. Hi, I'm Gabrielle Beth, and you're listening to the Bespoken Faith podcast. My hope is to share truth, give advice, or even tell funny, not so funny stories. I may even share some poetry with y'all from time to time. So whatever we're talking about, I hope you feel welcome. And don't forget to love generously, be spoken, and have faith.
So what do we think of our setup? I was really trying to figure out how I was going to set up to record my podcast. I thought about doing it all comfy, cozy on the bed, just more casual, but I really like the idea of having natural sunlight from the window. I know it's not the best lighting situation, but I put a little wooden plaque that I put this little sign behind me that I bought in the mall during the holidays. I actually think my mom bought that for me as a gift. And then I have a plant, my snake plant. I have my notebook, all my ideas and everything. And then my Bible, because as you all know, or you will know, I am a Christian, a very, very committed Christ girly. So yeah. Let's get into the story of the day. I am also going to be looking down at my notes from time to time. I have my laptop right here, so when you see me looking over, whatever, I'm just reading notes. Okay. So this story begins in 1991. I'm taking it way back because my story actually begins with my mom. I have an older sister who my mom conceived at the age of 17 with her high school sweetheart, David. And when my mom had Ashley, she was absolutely fresh out of high school and had no parenting experience. For one reason or another, I'm not 100% sure exactly, but my mom and David split up and she started dating her new boyfriend, Kenneth. Shortly after she and Kenneth got together, she became pregnant again, this time with a little boy. During this time, my mom was staying at her parents' house or my grandparents' house, and my grandma felt that the more responsible thing to do instead of keeping a second child at such a young age would be to put him up for adoption. My mom really didn't want to, but that's what she did. I actually would love to have my mom on an episode just to share more of her story and share her birth story, more about her past relationship and all that stuff. So I'll probably will have her in an episode somewhere down the line. But so while my mom was with Kenneth, he would abuse her both emotionally and physically to the point where she didn't feel worthy of living any longer. Then one day, out of the blue, she found out she was pregnant with me. One thing my mom has proven to be true is she would do anything for her kids. The day she found out she was pregnant was when she knew she needed to do something to get out of her current situation. If she didn't, who knew what would have happened to her? With a 2-year-old on her hip and a baby in the womb, my mom didn't have much hope to turn to. On September 19th, 1994, I broke the mold and entered into the world. My mom had planned on naming me Brittany originally, but at the last minute, she changed her mind. She felt that I truly saved her life, and the only way this could be made possible was God. One of God's messengers in the Bible is Angel Gabrielle. My mom thought this would be the perfect name for her child, but since she was having a girl, she named me Gabrielle. I've always loved my name and that it's related to God somehow. Gabrielle literally translates to God is my strength, and oh my goodness, that could not be more true. When I was 2 years old, I nearly died. I had pneumonia and a fever of 104 degrees. I had seizures that caused me to stop breathing. My grandma performed CPR, and when I still appeared lifeless, my mom, like any mom in this situation would react, started banging her hand on the wall, screaming, "Not my Gabby, please, not my Gabby." My grandma asked my grandpa to call 911 while she was giving me CPR. Once the ambulance had arrived, a paramedic told my grandpa to fill up a bucket of water as cold as he could make it and just pour it on me to try to lower my temperature. I was brought to the hospital. My grandma came to the hospital with me. My mom stayed home to take care of my sister. My grandmother, for as long as I've known her, has always been a woman of faith. And her faith came in handy that day because she said that she sat beside my bed and just prayed to God and asked him to make me well. And miraculously, not only did I survive this incident, but I didn't suffer from any mental side effects, even after being without oxygen for 7 minutes straight. This was the first occurrence in my life where I learned about God's grace. A lot of significance occurred in this living room over the years. When I was 3, Ashley and I were playing, and our mom was going to move a tall, narrow cabinet that had VHS tapes in it. If you remember the very tall, what are they called? Entertainment centers. Your parents or your grandparents might still have them. They're not so popular nowadays. But yeah, I was just like playing around, and my mom was trying to get me to move, but I was being a kid, so I didn't want to listen to her. In the blink of an eye, the cabinet fell over, and I didn't have time to move out of the way. I started to move from one couch to the other, and that's when the cabinet fell and it landed on my leg. And I ended up with a broken ankle. To this day, I can't sit crisscross comfortably for too long without feeling pain. And if I tie my shoes too tight, I'll feel pain in my ankle. So, thanks, Mom. I'm just kidding. So somewhere down the road, I must have been 4 or 5 when my mom decided to start dating her high school sweetheart, David, once again. She ended up conceiving my younger sister, Jenna, and my mom actually got married to David while she was pregnant with Jenna. The day that Jenna was born, my mom didn't have time to make it to the hospital and ended up giving birth to Jenna on the living room floor. Again, I would love to have my mom in here and share her birthing stories, especially with you guys. I think she tells it way better than I could. My mom has never been one to be on time, but in all honesty, my sister didn't waste any time entering this world either. My mom wanted to take a quick shower before leaving for the hospital, so she said, okay, I'm gonna get in the shower and just, shave my legs and get myself cleaned up before leaving. And she said her water must have broken while she was in the shower because she doesn't remember her water breaking. She just remembered having that feeling of oh my goodness, I'm about to give birth right now. I don't have time to get to the hospital. So my aunt, how old would she have been? She's 10 years younger than my mom. Yeah, she must have been about like 10 or 12 years old. But my aunt dialed 911 and stood by in case she had to deliver my sister herself. I was told to stay upstairs while the living room carpet was converted into a delivery table. I can still recall being bummed that I couldn't witness her birth. Later, I realized staying upstairs was probably the better idea. A little over a year after having Jenna, my mom gave birth to my youngest sister, Melissa. So, my three sisters have a separate dad than me and my brother do. So, me and my brother were full siblings. At this time, I had never met him, didn't even know he existed. None of us knew he existed except for my mom. And I didn't know at a young age that I wasn't 100% related to my sisters. It was just played as if David was my father, too. Just a little side note, we did end up connecting with my brother last year. It's a crazy, crazy story. I'll probably have my mom share that in the episode I bring her on. But there's a crazy connecting story that ended up allowing her to reunite with him and him to reunite with our family. So it's pretty awesome how things worked out. My mom was married to David for not very long before their marriage ended. There were a lot of reasons why their marriage didn't last, and I don't think I should be the one to share that with you all. I'd rather let my mom share her side of the story for what it was. It's just not my tea to spill. But yeah, she became a single mom and had to work multiple jobs to provide for us while we were growing up. And reflecting back on it, we had a pretty good childhood. We had everything we could ever have needed. I mean, we weren't rich by any means. There were definitely times when we struggled, but I can't remember a time where we ever went like starving. I hear so many horror stories of tragic things that have happened to people in their childhood years, and to say that we all grew up with mostly having good memories to look back on, I'm honestly blessed. We grew up in an apartment. It wasn't very big. I think I remember sharing a bedroom with one of my sisters during the time. And when our mom started to move forward with her next boyfriend, whose name was Scott, they decided to buy a house together. So I was in fourth grade when this had happened. We moved to a completely different town. And it was honestly fun getting to move and eventually make new friends. Scott had built a pool and a swing set at this house, so he made it really, really nice for me and my sisters, especially. Our mom really enjoyed gardening, so the yard always looked nice. It was honestly a great place to call home. I did have to share a room with my two younger sisters growing up, but it wasn't the end of the world. I actually miss those days because we were all so close. But I would get annoyed because, like, my sisters being 5 and 6 years younger than me, like, they were very, very messy, always had toys everywhere. So I remember I eventually, like, drew a line in the room and I was like, this is your half and this is my half. Like, keep your stuff on your half so I can keep my half clean. Those years that my mom and Scott were together were honestly so fun. Scott had nieces around my age and we all became besties. They would visit in the summer and we would visit his family in Pennsylvania in the winter and ride snowmobiles. But as we got older, there was some drama. I think I was 13, 14 at the time, and I went to Pennsylvania with Scott's nieces for the summer. I was like a little bit jealous of them because their mom would buy them whatever they wanted. Like, we would go to the mall and they would just go around Hollister and Abercrombie and they would pick out what they wanted and bring it to their mom. And it was like, there wasn't ever really a budget or anything. Their mom would just buy them what they wanted. So I did actually try to steal a pair of Adidas slides and I think a super cute cami from one of the stores, like a Hollister yellow cami. I feel like I remember like a specific cami that I tried to steal. It had like yellow and lace on it. Like if you remember those camis from like the early 2000s. But they obviously caught me and that like started some drama between the family. I don't think I ever came clean about that. I think I tried to like deny that I had stolen that stuff, but mommy, if you're listening to this, I sorry if that never came out, but yeah, I did try to like steal some stuff. I was just too embarrassed to like ever admit it. I just like kind of wanted to like brush it under the rug. And when you're stealing something, like you don't want to admit that. Then when I was 15 years old, um, this part's a little bit hard to share, but Scott's nephew thought it would be a great idea to sexually assault me. He forced me to perform sexual acts on him and with him. And he said if I ever tried to tell anyone, he would tell everyone that I was the one initiating it. So at 15, only a sophomore in high school, I was scared. I didn't want all of my friends knowing about it, so I just let it happen. Also, I'm gonna get more into like my salvation story in another episode, but I did grow up like learning about God, and I really feel like Jesus was sown into my heart at a young age, even though like I didn't know what following him looked like because that wasn't the standard for our household. But I did feel like I was gonna go to hell because of like this thing that was happening. Even though it like wasn't my fault, I just like had that in my head that I was gonna go to hell. But yeah, it carried on for months. He would come over on the weekends, and once everyone would go to bed, he would usually wake me up because I would already be sleeping, and he would be like, give me right now. And I would because I felt like I couldn't say no. And the funny thing is, I probably could have just screamed and woken everybody up, or like the very first time it happened, I could have probably just been like, Mommy, this happened to me, and she would have never let him ever come near me again. But again, I was just scared, and I unfortunately just let it happen. So how everything kind of came to an end was we had actually moved into my grandma's house, and this person was still a friend of the family. So him and I, we like kept in touch, and we were texting one day. I had left my phone on the counter while I went to go take a shower, and my mom saw incoming texts coming from him describing what he wanted to do to me. So once she found out, obviously she was livid, and we had talked about pressing charges, but we never did, unfortunately. We just cut him out of our life because, we just felt like it was the easiest thing to do. But to make a long story short, he ended up dating a gal who I actually worked with for a while, and they conceived and gave birth to a baby boy. I want to say he had another child after that as well. And all I could think was, this guy should not be having children. Like, he's so, like, dirty and just is not a good person. But I digress. I did end up forgiving him later on too, which I also mentioned in my testimony episode because, yeah, I had no idea what forgiveness was until God showed me what it was. So the reason why we moved into my grandma's house was because my mom and Scott had split up, but then they ended up getting back together. So we moved back into Scott's house, and not long after that, they started having issues. They were arguing a lot more, and at this time, I was dating a guy named Kyle. I was a very rebellious teenager, and I really had very low self-worth after like what had happened to me. And I didn't really give like a hoot about myself. Like, I wanted to die. And like after that assault happened, I did go to therapy for like months. I probably like should have never dated anybody for the rest of high school and just continued going to therapy and like focusing on myself because it was just so stupid. So as I was editing this episode, I realized I totally forgot to mention a couple of things. One being that my really good friend from high school, Ivory, She was such a great friend. She was a Christian as well, and I remember she would invite me to her youth group. I even went to Six Flags with her in her church, and she was just a great friend all around. And during my depressive state, I pretty much stopped going to school. I really hated myself. I really didn't want to even be around people, so I pretty much stopped going to school altogether. And Ivory came to my house and came into my bedroom and found me laying in bed, and she said, "Gabby, get up, come to school, like everybody misses you, everybody's asking where you've been, like I'll wait for you, I'll walk in with you, like you just need to come to school." And I said, "I'm sorry, I can't come." And I guess she didn't know what to do because she just left. I never really got to say thank you to her, but Ivory, if you're listening to this, thank you for doing your best at being a good friend to me when I needed one. And I was just too depressed and down to pull myself out of bed, but thank you. So the other thing I want to mention is I really tried to drop out of high school. I went to meet with my guidance counselor because my attendance was so bad. I missed so much school. And she looked at me and she said, "Listen, there are students who come in here who I let leave, but not you. I know you have what it takes. And I'll tell you what, starting the new year," because this was like right before winter break, and she said, "Starting the new year, I'll wipe your slate clean. You can come back to school, finish up the next few months, and then you're done. You'll graduate." So I did that, and without her little nudge and without like that reset, I would have dropped out of high school. So yeah, back to the story. Face until now, and I'm thankful to know like the other half of what I look like. Backing up a little bit, Gene ended up marrying my mom. They bought a house together, as I had mentioned. He adopted me, and things were pretty great for a while. New married couple, nice house to live in. Everything's pretty good. I'm gonna now start referring to Gene as my dad since he's who I identify as my dad. So my dad was in 2013. He started to search for jobs in all different areas, and he ended up looking for a job for a moving company in North Carolina. And he decided to take it and move the family to North Carolina. At the time, I was enrolled in beauty school, plus I was also in a relationship, and I wasn't willing to drop out of beauty school because I already put down my deposit for school, which one I would have lost that. So I was locked in, and it was something that I really wanted to pursue at the time. So I decided to move into my grandparents' house while my family moved to North Carolina. And that was really hard, like making that decision to like be so far away from family. I don't understand how people like when they turn 18, they're like, "Peace out, like I'll see you when I see you." Because like being that young, like, and being that close to my family, like I felt so like just like part of me was missing. It was really, really difficult to be away from them. But I was also like very busy with work and everything at the time. Plus I had my boyfriend, plus my grandparents. So like there was good with the bad too. But yeah, living with my grandparents, like I wish I had cherished that time with them so much more than I did. Because my great grandma was staying with us too, and like now only like 5 years since when I first moved in there, my grandpa's no longer with us. My great grandma has passed as well, and like it just sucks, you know, you can't turn back time, but you live and you learn, and I'm grateful for the experiences that I was able to have with them. After I moved into my grandparents' house, I started to go to church as well. And they were plugged into a really nice church. It was at that church that I gave my life to Christ. And that is where I'm going to end this episode. I'm going to mention it again. But those of you who found my podcast through social media, or I maybe have mentioned it to you personally, you know that I'm very devoted to Christ, and a huge part of my story is my testimony, how I came to Christ. how I found forgiveness, how I fell in love with Jesus, how he delivered me from so many things. He convicted me and drew me near to him at a time when I thought I had everything. I thought, life can't get better than this because I have a really great paying job, a boyfriend who treats me well. I felt like I had everything that I should have been happy, but like there was always something that it felt like there was always something missing. And I'm happy to be here today to share with you what that something is. So thank you. If you made it to this point in the podcast, please subscribe if you want to continue to hear my story and other things that I'm going to be sharing with you all. I would love to hear any constructive feedback, criticism. Leave comments down below. Send me messages. You can follow me if you want to connect with me. I am on TikTok and Instagram. The handle is at the Gabrielle Beth. And I would love to hear from you. Please connect with me if you are interested and want to hear more. And I guess I will talk to you in the next episode. I'm so excited I finally recorded episode 1. It's been a long time coming, y'all. It has definitely been a long time coming, but I will talk to you in the next episode. Be blessed, have faith, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.